Mr. Trump, on Thursday, Hillary Clinton gave a speech, very tough on you, said that you wanted to bring back waterboarding, go after the families of terrorists, allow Saudi Arabia to have a nuclear weapon. She says you've said that you know more about ISIS than the generals. What, in terms of your policies, I know you don't like the speech, but what policy of yours did she mischaracterize?
Well, number one, it was a whole, written out by professionals and just shot after shot. It was supposed to be foreign policy, and it was really Trump policy. And she got it all wrong. I mean, first of all, she talked about that I want to nuke all of these countries. It's ridiculous. No, I want these countries to pay for protection. We are protecting them. We have $19 trillion in debt, very soon going to $21 trillion, John, in debt. And I want these countries to reimburse us at least for our cost. You're talking about ultimately trillions of dollars over a period of time. And we just can't be doing that anymore. This isn't 30 years ago and 40 years ago. She made many statements that she knows were wrong. And I mean, you could go after statement, and you'll see it was just an exaggeration. Well, I tell you that I want to see Japan go nuclear. I don't want to see Japan go nuclear. I want to see Japan help us out. I have great relationships with Japan. I have a lot of friends in Japan, and they even laugh at it. I mean, we're defending Japan, and a general got up and said, no, they pay for half the cost. He thought that was a good thing. I said, why aren't they paying for 100% of the cost? Saudi Arabia, the same thing. I mean, they have nothing but money, and we subsidize Saudi Arabia. For what? What are we doing? Why are we doing that? And we can get along with those countries better than we get along with them right now. And the media, which is very slanted, I mean, I've heard this all my life, frankly, but it's very slanted. They never mentioned the second part of my equation. I must say, David Sanger of the New York Times did. He really gave it a fair play. What I'm saying is that we want to take care of these countries. I don't want them. You always have to be prepared to walk, John. You can't say, she said, we will never walk for these countries. Well, then we'll continue to lose billions and billions of dollars. You have to be prepared to walk. You can't go into a negotiation without it. However, I think that what's going to happen is they'll all come through.
But it is a fair characterization of your view to say, if you walk and they get nuclear weapons, you said, that'd be okay.
I didn't say get nuclear. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But at a certain point, Japan will, if they're not going to pay us what it's going to cost. And I don't want, I'm not saying pay 10 times what it costs. I mean, you could make the case that really, if you look at all of the, the backup that we have, you could make the case that something like that is worth it. The fact is, they are paying a small fraction of what it's costing. So is Germany, so is Saudi Arabia, so is South Korea. We are losing a fortune. We're the policemen for the world. We're losing a fortune. What I say is this: you have to be prepared to walk. I don't think they'll let us walk, frankly, because they like it the way it is, but they have to pay.
Do you still feel like you know more about ISIS than the generals?
Well, they don't know much because they're not winning. That I can tell you. Now, I think they're not winning for a different reason. I think Obama's hurting them.
How so?
It's being run, well, from what I hear, it's being run from the White House. It's all being run from the White House. I've spoken to certain generals. I'll keep it quiet as to who, but highly respected people. They say we could knock them out fast.
In office now generals or retired generals?
In one case in office and in one case out of office. And they said, both of them said the same thing. If we had the leadership, meaning the go-ahead, you could knock them out fast. For some reason, Obama's not doing that.
Let me ask you about Libya. You've been highly critical of Libya and Hillary Clinton. You were also for military action to oust Gaddafi and military action to take care of the humanitarian situation in Libya. You supported that.
When you say I supported it, I supported Libya?
Yeah, you supported intervention in Libya.
I did? Where do you see that?
In a video blog from 2011, you said,
now, we should go in, we should stop this guy, which would be very easy and very quick. We could do it surgically, stop him from doing it, and save these lives.
That's a big difference from what we're talking about. I mean,
but you were for intervention.
Don't forget, I'm the only one. I made a lot of money with Gaddafi, if you remember. He came to the country, and he had to make a deal with me because he needed a place to stay, and he paid me a fortune, never got to stay there, and it became sort of a big joke. But the fact is that Libya was a disaster from the standpoint of the way it was handled. I mean,
but you were for intervention. Just to clear that up,
I was for doing something, but I wasn't for what you have right now. And right now, ISIS has their oil, John. ISIS is selling, and that's among the finest oil in the world. ISIS has taken over the Libyan oil. And we don't do blockades. We don't do anything. They're selling it. They're making a fortune with it. So we go out. We do Libya. We do it poorly as you can do it. You can't do worse. And then now, if you look at what's happened, I mean, the end result is ISIS is selling the oil, and it's a total mess.
This is one of the things that confuses some people about your positions, though. You said you weren't for intervention, but you were for intervention in Libya.
I didn't mind surgical, and I said surgical. You do a surgical shot, and you take them out. but I wasn't for what happened. Look at the way it's, I mean, look at with Benghazi and with all of the problems that you've had, it was handled horribly.
Because I
That's
think
not the way
since
it's
then you've
supposed to
said
be.
you were never for intervention. So it's
I was
confusing.
never for a strong intervention. I could have seen surgical where you take out Gaddafi and his group.
You said Hillary Clinton should go to jail. If the FBI, which is investigating, if there's no indictment, will your Attorney General go after her?
So I have spoken to and I've watched and I've read many, many lawyers on the subject, you know, so-called neutral lawyers, okay? Not even on one side or the other, neutral lawyers. Every one of them, without a doubt, said that what she did is far worse than what other people did, like General Petraeus, who essentially got a 2-year jail term. General Petraeus and others have been treated, I mean, their lives have been, in a sense, destroyed. She keeps campaigning. I mean, what she did is a criminal situation. She wasn't supposed to do that with the server and the emails and all of the other. Now, I rely on the lawyers. These are good lawyers. These are professional lawyers. These are lawyers that know what they're talking about and are very well versed on what she did. They say she's guilty as hell.
But it sounded like you were making a promise for your Attorney General that if you were elected, this is one of the things, this is a commitment you were making,
That's
basically.
true.
It's a commitment to have your Attorney
certainly
General.
have my, very fair, but I would have my Attorney General look at it.
Even if the
absolutely.
investigations
And
go
as you
through
know,
and
you have a 5 and maybe even a 6-year statute of limitations.
But even if the current investigations don't find anything, you'd have your Attorney General go back at
Yes,
it.
I would, because everyone knows that she's guilty. Now, I would say this, she's guilty, but I would let my Attorney General make that determination. Maybe they would disagree, and I would let that person make the determination.
And what for you exactly is she guilty of?
She is guilty of the server. She is guilty of, you look at confidential information, I mean, all of the information that probably has gotten out all over the world. And then, you know what, she's also guilty of stupidity and bad judgment.
But that's not, if that were criminal, we'd
No,
all
no,
be in
I'm
jail.
not even saying that part is criminal, but she's certainly guilty of that. In terms of this country, she is guilty of having just bad, how could she do a thing like this?
But what gets him to jail, though? What's the difference here between rhetoric and law?
What the lawyers are saying is what she did in terms of national security. They have very strict rules and regulations. She's broken all of them.
So the classification
issue.
issue.
All of them. Of course it is. I mean, she's broken so much. But she's so, you know, if you look at this from the standpoint of why did she do it, judgment, the word judgment. This isn't criminal judgment. You make bad judgment. Although, actually, under those rules and regulations, judgment is even criminal. You know, you're not supposed to do it. If you make a mistake, they don't take that into account. Why would a person, and how can a person with this kind of judgment become the President of the United States? Now, think of this. We're in a cyber world. This is a cyber world. This is a very complex, we're in a world like we've never been in before. If we're in a cyber world, and she can't even handle her emails, how can she be president? And we're being hacked all over the place by Russia, by China, probably. I mean, to the best of everyone's knowledge, it seems to be. But listen to this. So we're in a cyber world, and she's playing around with servers and emails. How can she be running this country? She doesn't know what she's doing.
I want to move on to another development this week. Paul Ryan has now come out and endorsed you. You've talked to him several times.
Yes.
Which of his ideas, the famous Ryan ideas, are most appealing to you?
He's most appealing. He's a good man. He wants good things for the country. We will agree on many things. We're not going to agree on all things, but we're going to agree on many things.
For instance?
Paul Ryan, well, I think we'll agree on, as an example, he really focuses on poverty. He wants to take people out of poverty. So do I. And we're going to come up with a plan.
Why do you think people are poor, by the way?
They're poor because they don't have jobs. They're poor in many cases because they don't have jobs. And I will tell you, I will bring jobs back to this country like nobody's ever seen before. And people like Carrier and Ford and Nabisco leaving Chicago and moving to Mexico, they're all moving to Mexico. I will stop that very quickly. There have to be consequences when somebody like in Indiana, I mean, I think I won Indiana. I won it by a landslide. I think one of the reasons I won it was because Carrier moved out. And they let 1,400 people go, and it's the biggest story.
Do you see yourself as implementing Paul Ryan's agenda as president, or is Paul Ryan implementing the Donald Trump agenda?
I think it's going to be a compromise, honestly. I can see a compromise.
Because on issues of trade, entitlements, you and he, immigration. So trade, entitlements, immigration, those are no small
We have
issues.
some
You are on
differences.
exactly
We have
the
some
opposite end of the, those aren't differences. You're on the opposite end of the.
Well, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, we've spoken about it very briefly. They're big subjects. You know what my deal is on trade? I want good deals. That's what my deal. You know, somebody said, what is your position on trade? I said, I want good deals. Whether it's free trade, not free trade, I don't care what kind of trade it is. I want good deals for our country. We don't make good deals. We have a trade deficit with China that is through the roof. We have a trade deficit with Mexico. We have a trade deficit with Japan. We make bad deals, whether it's the military, whether it's trade. We only make bad deals.
Let me ask you about Mitch McConnell on the Senate side. He was asked by CNN two things. One, about the deporting of the 11 million undocumented immigrants, which the president, by the way, called a fantasy. He said if you asked him to do that, he would say, no, don't do it. He also said about the temporary ban on Muslim immigration, no, don't do it. These are two big promises. You got millions of votes based on these promises. How are you going to get past the establishment to keep those promises
You're
you
going to
made
have to
people?
watch and you're going to have to see. I've done a lot of things that nobody thought I could do.
But you're not backing down on
you.
those promises
No,
based
I'm
on
not
the
backing
no
down.
from
We
the
have
Senate.
to do something. We have a problem in this country. We have a radical Islamic terrorism problem in this country. And by the way, throughout the world, it's a problem. And it's a temporary ban. I'm not talking permanent. It's a temporary ban. We have to find out what's going on. When you have in San Bernardino, where you have these two young people with bombs all over their apartment, and nobody reports them, and everybody knew about it, and nobody reports them. When you have the Paris killer, as an example, who's living right next door to his own apartment, and everybody knew he was there, and it took almost a year for these people to find him because he's being protected. We need help from the people that are not the problem. But why didn't people turn him in? Everybody in the world was looking for him, right? They were all looking for him. He lived right next to where he grew up.
And on the 11
nobody
million,
turned him in.
on the 11 million, that starts day one of the Trump
Well, no,
administration.
just so you understand, we're going to, starting day one, we're getting rid of the gang members, and we have some bad dudes in this country. And the police know who they are, by the way. You know, I've had support of virtually every police group in this country has endorsed me, and nobody else. Nobody's gotten the support like I've gotten it, and I think you know that better than anybody. They know the gang members. These people, in many cases, they're coming. They're illegal immigrants. They're going out, and they're going out fast. And then we're going to start a process. And we're going to start a process, and it'll be a very fair process, just so you understand. We're going to build a wall. It's going to stop drugs, because the best thing about the wall, it's going to stop drugs. You know, our country is being poisoned by drugs coming across the southern border. Just so you understand, I got 2 weeks ago, the Border Patrol agents, 16,500 Border Patrol agents endorsed me. They've never endorsed a presidential candidate before. I have learned more from them than any of the so-called consultants that you could talk about. I've learned more from the Border Patrol. They know more about this than anybody. They need the wall. They need the wall badly, and they need it for the drugs, because our country is being poisoned. And we don't have to talk about it, but our country is being poisoned.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, one other point. Yes, people have to leave. We have a country. It's a country of laws. We have to have a border. But people are going to come into our country, and they're going to come in legally. But they're going to come in, and a lot of people are going to come in because we need them.
Let me ask you about, what does the Mexican heritage of the judge in the Trump University case have to do with anything?
I think it has a lot to do with it. First of all, I've had terrible rulings forever. I had a judge previous to him, and it would have been a very quick case. This is a case I should have won on summary judgment. This is a case, and nobody writes this, and they all know it, but they don't like to write it. The plaintiff in the case was a woman. She was so bad that under deposition, it was over. I mean, she couldn't have been the plaintiff. It was a disaster. They went before the judge. They said, we don't want her to be the plaintiff. We want to put somebody else in. So we said, well, that's fine. Dismiss the case. You have to dismiss the case. Wait a minute. She gave letters, the most incredible reviews of the college you've ever seen, of the university. She gave the most incredible. Then on top of it, we have a tape where she's talking about it in the most glowing terms. You wouldn't speak about your college.
Mr. Trump, what does this have to do with his parents being from Mexico?
No,
How does that?
Excuse me. I'm just saying, we're getting terrible rulings. We go to the judge. We say to the judge, hey, you can't let her out of the case. He let her out of the case. We said, well, if you're going to let her out of the case, she's the plaintiff. If you're going to let her out of the case is over. No, the case isn't over. Okay? Now,
give me the thought process, though. Why? How does this work?
My thought process.
No,
is
for
very
him.
simple.
How does his Mexican parents have to do with him not ruling for you?
He's a member of a club or society very strongly pro-Mexican, which is all fine. But I say he's got bias. I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall. I'm doing very well with the Latinos, with the Hispanics, with the Mexicans. I'm doing very well with them, in my opinion. And we're going to see. You're going to see. Because you know what? I'm providing jobs. Nobody else is giving jobs. But just so you understand, this judge has treated me very unfairly. He's treated me in a hostile manner. And there's something going on. When a woman can be a plaintiff in a case and then say, I don't want to be, and you know why they don't want to be a plaintiff? They didn't want her. The lawyers asked that she not be a plaintiff because they would have lost the case immediately.
So I'm trying to figure out your thinking here, though. If his Mexican heritage, the fact that his parents were Mexican immigrants, is a barrier to him doing his job, why would any Mexican voter vote for you? Wouldn't they be the same barrier,
that's a whole
same
different
problem?
thing. No, they're going to vote for me because I'm going to bring jobs into the country.
But isn't it the same problem because you want to
totally
build a wall and
different.
all
No,
of that?
no,
So what if it
not
was
at
a
all.
Muslim judge?
By the way, I have so many Hispanics. I made a speech last night. I saw hundreds of signs, Latinos for Trump, Latinos for Trump, all over the place. And you know what? They're here legally. They don't want their homes taken away. They don't want their job taken away. They like what I'm doing. Now, people can come in, but they have to come in legally.
On the Muslim, but what if he was a Muslim, though? You've been very tough on temporary Muslim immigration bans. So would a Muslim judge be? Would a Muslim judge be also out of the question here?
We are allowing tremendous numbers of people coming into this country that we know nothing about. We have a problem in this country. We are going to have big problems. You know, I've been pretty good at predicting things, John. We're going to have big problems. We have people coming into this country, totally undocumented. They don't know anything about them. They don't have paperwork. I've interviewed and talked to the best law enforcement people in the business. There's no way of knowing where they come from, and we're taking them in from the so-called migration. They're being sent all over the country. We have people that don't know what they're doing.
My question is, if it
were a
Muslim judge, would you also feel like they wouldn't be able to treat you fairly because of that policy of yours?
It's possible, yes. Yeah, that would be possible, absolutely.
Isn't there sort of a tradition, though, in America that we don't judge people by who their parents were, where they came from?
I'm not talking about tradition. I'm talking about common sense, okay? He's somebody, he's proud of his heritage, and I think that's great that he's proud of his heritage.
But you're saying it's a barrier to him doing his job.
Oh, he's not giving me fair. He's not treating me fairly.
And you think it's not because it's because of where his parents came from?
I've had numerous lawyers. Look, I have a case where thousands of people have said it was a great school. They've written reviews where they say it's a great school, not a good school, like great. They gave it the highest marks. I have thousands of these papers. It should have been a summary judgment case, meaning the case should have been dismissed. And I had a judge who was very fair. I have a lawyer that came in when he came in. I mean, the lawyer on the other side sort of entered the case when he entered the case, and we're trying to figure out what that's all about.
Would you have your lawyers say, hey, throw this out because the
well,
judges...
Well, I may do that now.
Ask your lawyers to do that.
We're finding things out now that we didn't know before.
Because of his Mexican heritage, though. Use that as
because of
from the
other
lawyers.
things. I mean, because of other things.
You've said you want to reopen
How do you allow a case to proceed when the plaintiff asks to be dismissed from the case? The plaintiff, the one that brought the suit, said, I don't want to sue anymore. I don't want to sue anymore. They didn't want to sue. You know why they didn't want to? Because she can't win the case, because she was a disaster. So the lawyers want her dismissed from the case. They go before the judge and he lets her out. Well, he can let her out, but you have to dismiss the case.
Yeah, I guess I'm just still confused how that, what his Mexican parents have to do with that.
Excuse me. I want to build a wall. I mean, I don't think it's very confusing.
Well,
has nothing to do with anything except common sense. You know, we have to stop being so politically correct in this country, and we need a little more common sense, John. And I'm not blaming. I'm proud of my heritage. We're all proud of our heritage. But I want to build a wall. Now, the Hispanics, many of them like what I'm saying. They're here legally. They don't want people coming and taking their jobs and taking their house and everything else. They don't want that.
Let me ask you about Trump University. You're going to reopen it. Anything you do differently when you reopen it?
Look, I guess in life you always do things differently. I'll tell you, the thing that we did very well is we had evaluation reports done by all of the students. I mean, without that, it would be, you know, my word against their word, I guess, or somebody's word against their word. We have evaluation reports where we have thousands of them. And these reports, I mean, they're very detailed reports. What did you think of the instructors? What did you think of this? What did you think of the, you know, 1 to 5, mostly at 5, 5 being excellent, right? It's from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. And people circle. I'm being sued by people that have given this tremendous reports. Now they're going to say, oh, but they were forced. Who forced them? Nobody forced them. You mean they forced thousands of people to sign reports? Nobody forced them to sign a report. And many, it says remarks on them. Many have in hand writing beautiful statements about the school. Look, it's very simple. It's called, if I have a chance to get my money back, let me get my money back.
Let me ask you about one last question, which is about lobbyists. You've talked about the influence people try to exude. You're going to need some money to run in this campaign. When you're
not much for me. I'm raising a lot of money for the party. Look, I put in $55 million into my campaign, into the primaries, okay, which is far less than other people. You know, if you look at other, I don't want to use names, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but people put in, you know, many times that. Hillary Clinton, she's in for like $200 million, and she's still fighting Bernie. She can't close the deal because she's not a closer. But let me just tell you, I've spent $55 million of my money, and I'm very happy about it. I think it's great. I had a great result. I spent less money and have the best result, okay? For the general election, I don't know why they say it costs so much money. I think it costs a lot less. Everyone said you can't do it for 50, and I did it for 50. I did it for exactly what they said you couldn't do it for. I don't know why they need this money, but what they need is for the party. I'm raising money for senators, for congressmen. I'm raising a lot of money. And the money's going to the RNC, it's not going to me. Now, a little bit of the money comes, you know, the smaller numbers come into me, but I'll be spending a lot of my own money, and the money that comes to me is not influential money, it's small money.
I just meant when you're president, will you say no lobbyists will work for me and no big donors? Just in keeping with your argument that people who give and who work the system are trying to corrupt the system. Would you have that kind of law?
I would have no problem with it, honestly, because, you know, for the most part, the money that's coming in, you know how much I've turned down? I have turned down, I'll bet you if I wanted to do a super PAC, you know, back when I started running, I could have Bush raised, what, $168 million? I could have raised 4 times that amount if I wanted to. I raised nothing. I didn't take any money. Yeah, I don't want the big money. But I do want to raise a lot of money for the RNC, and I do want to raise it for the party.
Last question. Should the U.S. go to the Olympics still with the threat of Zika in Brazil?
The answer is yes, but certainly if an athlete wouldn't want to do it, they should have the right not to do it. But I would say yes.
All right, Mr. Trump, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.